Today I'll be talking about the struggles of women in New Jersey. Some may ask, how are women back then and also today discriminated against? What may the ranges of discrimination against women be? So I'll be going through a variety of circumstances where women have been discriminated and prejudiced against, especially in political, financial, in the economy, and also academic settings. The first struggle women in New Jersey encountered was during the early years of 1800s, and it appears in a book chapter called Women's Suffrage in New Jersey, 1790 through 1807, by Edward Raymond Turner, that surrounds the political aspect. And this is the book, and then the quotation I use is that a motion was made to amend by adding that it is the true intent and meaning of this act, but the inspectors of elections in the several townships of the state shall not refuse the vote of any widow or unmarried woman of full age, provided each of the said persons shall make it appear on oath or otherwise, to the satisfaction of the said inspectors that she is worth 50 pounds clear estate. The amendment was rejected because it was said that the Constitution clearly guaranteed this right to women, and the inspectors must be guided thereby. Turner, page 174. So Turner claims that in the 1800s, a member desired a bill that stated townships of New Jersey will not refuse votes from either widows or unmarried women of any age, and this demonstrates expansion in the freedom of women's right to vote. Unfairly, this bill was rejected because the Constitution had already defined the right for all women in general to vote. But this brings up the issue that the state does not actually care for women because they refuse to explain their inclusivity in who can actually vote. And if it is unclear who can vote, the voting officials have so much freedom to interpret the law however they like it. So the second struggle I focus on are finances. And I use the documentary called With No One to Help Us, 1967, produced by Project Head Start, and it emphasizes the formation of a food buying club grown by a group of welfare Black mothers in Newark, and how they have faced financial conflicts. And this was triggered because the instances where these women would get food that was worth $10, but then when it was time to pay the bill, it went up $15. And in this documentary, the Black community of women, they struggle fighting racism in the economy. So one of the mothers, I quote, said, "He didn't believe that I purchased what I purchased in a particular store." And the response from the chairman of this committee, Mrs. Marion Kidd, she said, "And they're gonna keep walking over you." So this one woman was trying to buy something, but then the cashier didn't believe her. And the Mrs. Marion Kidd said that those kinds of people will keep taking their rights and their empowerment away. And then an article from NewarkMag.com written by Whitney Strub stresses the same statement, that this welfare issue is not only relevant to economic stress but also to racism. And I quote, and this is from week 7 as the class reading, and she quotes, "The problem, however, is not one of the analysis, but rather one of power. With No One to Help Us is a remarkable film, not just for its focus on the voices and political thought of poor working class Black women, but also for its almost singular devotion to process." So Strub claims that the film is not just about the expensive cost of food, but also gaining back power from this working class of Black women and building up the process of just activism and empowerment, and this is vital for the betterment in the next generations to come. So another hardship I focus on is academics. This is actually the Douglas Residential College at Rutgers University, and this is used as an example from a book written by Patricia Dougray Shea, and it's called The Struggle for Women's Access During the Progressive Era, 1870 through 1930. And she basically highlights a bunch of circumstances where women have faced academic inequality at Rutgers University. And a quote I use is, the path to co-education was blocked by the patriarchal structure of New Jersey higher education. Therefore, the most expedient path to gain access to a four-year college education was through the creation of a new separate institution for women. And so Shea's claim concludes that there were no four-year institutions for women to attend, due to already established schools. So this brought them to take matters into their own hands by creating a four-year institution. But even after creating their own institution, they still fumbled through another struggle. And this quote says, the new college struggled to obtain resources and remained subject to patriarchal leaders at Rutgers who could have intervened at any time in the functioning of college. So these ambitious women created Douglas Residential College, but then received lack of help and resources from these leaders who have already settled into their own institution. And this is a form of discrimination against women who are trying to bring equality to their academics. And then another quote I use shows that because the movement in creating or continuing to fight for education acceptance were delayed, issues such as infertility have been risen. So this quote says, additional years of education would delay childbearing, reduce fertility rates among the middle and upper classes, and make the nation vulnerable to domination by immigrant families with higher birth rates, or so the argument went. So generating this issue at the time of the Progressive Era would put the state of New Jersey and even the United States itself at risk from the possibility that they may have an overpowered population of immigrant families. And along with this, the women had to experience the danger of high and unfair submission to men at the time. So not only in the 20th century did women struggle with politics, but also during the 21st century, according to Dana DiFilippo, who wrote the article Women Lag in Municipal Office and NJ Study Finds on NewJerseyMonitor.com. So she basically finds a statistic in the political workforce that may unveil injustice towards women. And it says women hold just 29.9% of municipal offices in New Jersey, lower than the national average of 31.5%, according to a new study from the Center for American Women and Politics at Rutgers University. She points out this statistics because it's just unusual how only 29.9%, which is below the average percentage of the nation, how that is only held by women in the municipal offices in New Jersey. And this reveals that there's some kind of underlying cause for this result, and that less women are being looked at and considered when choosing leaders in these political settings. So I wanted to focus on women's struggles outside of the States, and I focus on immigrant women who are specifically working in the factory industry. So for example, the author named Jennifer Guglielmo, she's the author of the book chapter Transnational Feminism's Radical Past, Lessons from Italian Immigrant Women, Anarchists in Industrializing America. And she quotes a specific Italian immigrant woman named Maria Barbiera, and she speaks about the poor working conditions in the greater becoming capitalist world. And this is the class reading from week 4. And the quote I use, it basically conveys that there was great exploitation in the factory working settings. And she says, Barbiera quotes that they have become human machines. And they have suffered from losing strength physically, mentally, where it says, where our rights are shattered before the greed of the bourgeoisie. And she emphasizes that the reason why they are suffering in the factory industry in the first place is because of the greed of these bourgeoisie, and they're referred to the capitalist middle class of the society. So even in the factory industry, women have faced indecency and injustice. So, in conclusion, as the struggles of women in New Jersey for voting rights, finances, education, politics, and even labor injustice for immigrant women arise, the importance and the need for awareness also arise. So one may ask why this topic is so important. And we can see this on the flip side, because if society obtains a stronger desire to halt exploitation and finances, like how the Black woman in the With No One to Help Us, 1967, have experienced, to allow equality and political rights such as voting and municipal positions and many other actions to build equal treatment among women, then less women would feel offended and discriminated against, which can help build our society to be safer and more liberating.